Assume that you are walking on the high streets of Toronto. Glass towers reflect the evening sun, streetcars glide past, cafes are full, and half a dozen languages float through the air. At first glance, this looks like success. A rich country, a safe country, a country many still dream of moving to. But stay a little longer. Talk to people. Listen carefully. A young professional tells you they earn more than their parents ever did, but can't imagine owning a home. A small business owner says rent has doubled while customers are cutting back. A recent immigrant works 2 jobs, yet still struggles to keep up with groceries. An elderly couple worries whether health care will be there when they need it most. And that leads to the big question many are quietly asking, is Canada doomed, socially, demographically, and economically? Let's slow down, because the answer is not a simple yes or no. The social strain. A country under pressure, Canada's social fabric is not tearing apart, but it is under stress. Over the last decade, population growth has accelerated at a pace Canada has rarely seen before. Immigration has long been a strength, and historically it worked well because housing, infrastructure, and public services expanded alongside it. Recently, that balance broke. Housing supply didn't keep up. Healthcare capacity didn't keep up. Transit, schools, and social services didn't keep up. The result? Competition instead of cohesion. When people feel they're fighting for apartments, hospital appointments, or decent wages, social trust weakens. Not because newcomers are the problem, but because systems were not scaled responsibly. Social tension grows in the gaps between policy ambition and on-the-ground reality. Canada isn't becoming less tolerant, but it is becoming more anxious. The demographic reality. Growth with a hidden weakness. On paper, Canada looks demographically strong. The population is growing fast, unlike many Western countries facing outright decline. But look closer. Canada still has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. Natural population growth is near zero. Almost all population expansion now comes from immigration. That creates a fragile dependency. Immigration alone cannot fix demographics if newcomers face unaffordable housing, lower real wages, credential recognition barriers, declining quality of life. If people can't build stable families, buy homes, or feel rooted, long-term demographic strength weakens. A society doesn't thrive on numbers alone. It thrives on settlement, stability, and upward mobility. Without that, population growth becomes statistical, not structural. The economic squeeze? Rich country? Poor performance? Canada is still wealthy, but it's underperforming. Productivity growth has been weak for years. Business investment lags behind peers. Real wages have stagnated while living costs soared. GDP grows, but GDP per person, the number that actually reflects living standards, has barely moved. Here's the core issue. Canada leaned too heavily on real estate population growth resource exports, and not enough on innovation, advanced manufacturing, productivity-enhancing technology. When housing becomes the primary investment instead of businesses, capital gets locked into bidding wars rather than growth. The economy expands in size, but not in strength. That's not collapse, but it is slow erosion. So, is Canada doomed? No. But it is at a crossroads. Doom implies inevitability. Canada's problems are not inevitable. They are policy-driven, structural, and, most importantly, fixable. The danger is not that Canada is failing. The danger is that it becomes comfortable with underperformance. What caused the crisis? 3 major forces collided. First, policy imbalance, ambitious population targets without matching housing, healthcare, or infrastructure investment. Second, asset inflation, overproductivity. Decades of rising home prices created the illusion of prosperity while weakening the real economy. Third, short-term thinking, political incentives favored immediate growth numbers over long-term resilience. None of these are cultural flaws. They are governance choices. Is there a recovery path? Yes, and it's clearer than many think. Canada's recovery doesn't require radical reinvention. It requires rebalancing. Housing as infrastructure, not speculation. Massive, sustained housing construction, especially purpose-built rentals, must become national infrastructure policy. Productivity. First, economics. Encourage business investment, scale innovation, and modernize regulation so capital flows into productive sectors, not just property. Smarter immigration, not less immigration. Align immigration levels with housing and services. Focus on integration, skills matching, and long-term settlement success. Restore the middle-class contract. When people believe effort leads to stability, trust returns. That means wages, affordability, and opportunity must reconnect. Canada still has enormous strengths: political stability, rule of law, Natural resources, a highly educated population, global trust. Those are not small things. Many countries would trade places instantly. The final thought, Canada once told a story of opportunity, of balance between compassion and competence. But over time, that balance began to slip. Uncontrolled and poorly planned immigration, much of it driven by unskilled inflows from developing countries like India, started to outpace Canada's ability to provide jobs, housing, and infrastructure. Wages stagnated, rents exploded, public services stretched thin, and young Canadians found themselves locked out of the future they were promised. This isn't a story about blaming immigrants, it's about failed policy. And today, this has become the single most important issue Canada must confront and fix if it wants to protect its economy, its social fabric, and its long-term prosperity. Over the past few years, Canada's student visa system quietly stopped being about education and became a backdoor entry route for many applicants whose primary goal was not studying, but simply getting into the country. By keeping eligibility requirements unusually low and oversight weak, Canada opened the door so wide that almost anyone could enter under the label of a student. The result was predictable. Overcrowded colleges, exploitation by diploma mills, pressure on housing and jobs, and an unprecedented strain on communities that were never prepared for such numbers. This isn't a failure of students, it's a failure of policy, and one that has placed enormous social and economic stress on Canada. As you continue walking through Toronto, you realize something important. This country isn't falling apart. It's outgrowing old systems. Canada's story is not one of doom. It's one of delayed adjustment. Whether it declines or renews itself depends on choices made now, not decades from now. History shows that countries don't collapse because of challenges. They collapse because they deny them. Canada is being tested, and tests, unlike doom, can be passed. Thank you. If you want more videos like this, subscribe and like. It will inspire me to create more like this.